One, two, three, go!
All right. Welcome to Boardroom Blitz. It's another fine, fabulous day here in Chicago. I'm Jeremy Bacon, and I'm joined by Gary Cooper. Or actually, today I'm not joined by Gary Cooper. He was called away unexpectedly. The gentleman we're going to be speaking with today has been building a really awesome company called Arch in the financial services technology space for the past several years. Ryan Eisenman's his name, and he'll be popping in here just in 1 second. But I wanted to tell you really quickly why I think that Ryan's a great guest for us here at the Boardroom Blitz. His company isn't just a fintech story in my mind. It's a case study in spotting an ugly, unglamorous problem that is hard to solve for a very exacting group of clients, earning trust in this very conservative industry, which is typically exceptionally difficult to do, and then scaling from a very narrow wedge into a much larger platform and doing so at a rapid pace. So Ryan, why don't you pop in here, join us. It's great to have you. Thanks for spending some time with me today.
Jeremy, great to be here. Just trying to follow in your footsteps of what you built at Backstop and a lot of the things you've done in your career. And so excited to chat today.
Well, I'm happy that you're here. So Ryan, you're joining us from New York City, right? One of the greatest cities in the world, almost as cool as Chicago.
Yeah, we try. Behind me, you'll see a view of kind of New York City, Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. We just moved down to the South Street Seaport, new office for Arch. Very excited to be here. And now we have some beautiful water views for anyone that is in the area.
Yeah, you do. It's awesome. I can't wait to come see the new office space. So why don't we do this? Let's start off by telling us a bit about your background, like why you decided to do what you're doing, how you got into what you're doing, and really the origin story for Arch and a bit of the journey from startup to where you are right now.
Yeah. So timeline is 2017. Had worked at an investment advisory firm, had seen some of the pain points, and sat next to an investor at a dinner. And over the course of a few coffees afterwards, because he was the type of person that was like, I need to meet with this person and learn a lot more about his world, and just felt like there was something to do together. I pitched him this idea of, hey, there should be kind of like a Schwab for private market investments. If you log into pick your favorite brokerage account, you can see all your investments in one place. You have a nice tax center. All your documents are organized. You can see Apple shares next to SpaceX shares next to anything else that you've invested in. But for investors, investment advisors, allocators, institutions, anyone that invests in real estate, private equity, hedge funds, credit, the world is completely different. And so you have all these portals and PDFs, and things are really painful. And this investor's eyes lit up, and he was like, yes, I have 100 K1s. I have to log into all these terrible portals, but I try not to. My advisor does it. My accountant bugs me. If you want to start a company, I'd love to be a client. I'd love to invest, and you should meet these two engineers. They're really smart. Maybe the three of you would want to work together.
What's funny about that, right? Not to cut you off, but most people hear K1s and either don't know what that is, or they're like, oh my gosh, what is sexy about solving K1 related problems and like document collection problems and document display problems for these very large money managers and asset owners? Like you guys started with the unsexiest of all of unsexy things to the vast majority of the world. You're not SpaceX, right? You're not Anthropic, but yet super big, challenging problems. When you were first asked to consider to start building a platform here, what were your original thoughts? I mean, obviously you have some background in the industry, but what were you thinking?
Yeah, well, we met in the basement of the Empire State Building in a highly unrenovated Starbucks, which probably is either gone now or renovated and looks completely different.
I remember that Starbucks. Spent many an hour in that place. Yeah.
Yeah. So our first conversation was kind of like, hey, you're interested in this space. I'm interested in this space. You know technology. I don't. Maybe there's something to do here together. And it was kind of like an unlikely but also very likely partnership. And the more that we've worked together, the more that we realized that our strengths were each other's weaknesses and vice versa. So it's been a great partnership with Jason and Joel, the two other co-founders of Arch. And we've been able to take a first principles view into this industry that we knew a little bit about at the beginning, but have been able to kind of like really focus on these unsexy, as you mentioned, back office problems, middle office problems, and increasingly like decision-making problems that investors and operations folks and advisors and accountants of all types face, and bring modern software into a side of the industry that has never had modern software and has never had people that just really care and care for like the next decades about building great solutions for these folks that are trying to navigate private markets.
To that end, with the investor types that you're dealing with, they are some of the most conservative investors on the planet because they have to be, given the size of their asset bases, given the responsibility they have for stewarding very large amounts of capital for very large numbers of people. What did you have to do early at Arch to prove to a bank or a family office or a private investment firm that you were trying to pitch that helped you get over that trust barrier as a startup?
It was a hard thing for us. And we'd sometimes go into meetings and show folks early versions of the Arch platform. And they'd say, oh, wow, like I've been waiting for someone to build this for years, for decades. And then we'd be like, great, so you want to sign up? And they're like, well, maybe, maybe not. Who else like me uses it? What does onboarding look like? Do you have a SOC audit? There were 50 reasons why someone might say no. And we just had to systematically solve each of those reasons. We made onboarding very easy. We created a great client experience team. We onboarded some of the biggest clients in the world. So now when someone says, hey, does someone like me use this? We can say, yes, Goldman Sachs uses you, or this someone else does. So it's all these like really important pieces of validation. And we have like firms that were pretty large in size. We're like, this is great, we want this, but we can't buy from a 4 to 5 person company. And it took us like 3 years to get to like real product market fit and to start to grow beyond 5 people.
I think for me, in the early days of all the companies that I built, all the software companies I built, like I never felt like I was selling software. Yeah. I always felt like I'm really selling confidence, right? I'm selling like the trustworthy nature of the team and the experience and the attention to detail. And I guess from your perspective, and you're nodding your head, it sounds like that certainly resonates. And what you said certainly resonates there too. Like how have your conversations changed at Arch with your clients since you've gone from 0 to 5? You're over 500 clients in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, 2021, we were probably at like 2,000 clients. Maybe we just passed $1 billion in assets. Today, we have over $500 billion in assets across our 640-ish clients. And conversations are differently. Someone can sign on a single phone call because someone they respect has told them exactly what they get out of Arch, why they use the platform, and why they trust us, and how we've delivered on our brand promise. So it's a fully different equation today. And now we're not only selling to individuals and family offices and small investment firms, we can sell to large investment advisory firms, Fortune 100 companies, asset managers themselves. So there's like a lot of like scale in the sales that we're doing today.
Well, and for context for listeners who don't know the financial services space well or don't understand the market that you service well, because it is not something that you read about on the front cover of the Wall Street Journal every day. Going from 0 to 640 clients in 5 years is a big deal in this space. I mean, a huge deal in this space. Some of the largest companies that have been around for 20 and 30 and 40 years that do tangential stuff to you are still at 1,500 clients because there's not 100,000 customers on the planet, right? And so given what you do, and so every deal matters a lot because it's a very tight knit, close knit industry. From your perspective too, as you built the team and you built the product and you've gone from 0 to several hundred employees at this point, like what is for you as the founder, what sort of lessons have you tried to impart to your teammates as you've grown? Lessons as it relates to dealing with the clientele, understanding the information, dealing with the market push, dealing with branding, whatever it is. I'm curious to hear how you work with your teammates to sort of carry that brand and drive that culture.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the little things, and it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything. And when you're choosing who to work with, who to work for, what products to buy, I think just understanding like what their brand promise is, both internally and externally, and we try to be pretty consistent on that. Where it's like, who is Arch at its core? We're a company that deeply cares about our customers, about our employees, about like doing the right thing, about being innovative and solving hard, complex problems. And doing things that really matter for our clients and for the world. So we're not just like trying to build a widget because like we think we can sell a widget for $10. We're really diving into our clients' problems and their workflows and understanding how capital goes from a PDF in a portal to dollars in a bank account that can fund the next data center or the next great private company. and be part of unlocking that capital. Because part of the initial thesis for us was there's a lot of poor decisions or information asymmetry or just like problems in private markets that are structural in nature. Because if you can't actually understand your data because your data is locked in PDFs, which are locked in portals, then it's really hard to make good decisions. So it's kind of this pyramid of if we can solve the workflow problems and then give people good data, then we can create frameworks and tools for understanding and for insights, which AI has been able to like really power much faster here at Arch. And then we can hopefully impact the decisions folks are making and help create a healthier market overall.
Makes a lot of sense. So you guys have been fortunate in your growth to also attract outside capital, venture capital specifically over the course of the last several years. If I'm not mistaken, you raised seed, a Series A. I met you, I think, when you were doing your seed or just closed your seed. You've raised an A and now a B as well, right, in 2025.
Yes.
A lot of our listeners are building companies and have ambitions to build companies that are venture backable. I'd love to hear how you sort of thought through and continue to think through the process of the pros, the cons, the process of raising and then managing your venture capital investors. What are the sort of lessons learned for you there?
Yeah, well, I think transparency and alignment is really important when picking investors of who are your investors, what do they care about, what's their time horizon for when they need returns, and how do they work with companies and work with boards. And I think we're really lucky of where we kind of are in the capital cycle. There's some really strong norms that have been created among some of the best venture capital firms in the world around how they govern and support companies. And it's very support driven, at least the firms we've been able to work with, where we get a lot of support from these firms, but they aren't heavy handed in needing to get a financial return on a certain timeline. I think there's more of a focus on creating the best expected value outcome. So I don't need my like 2 to 3x in 5 years. If I can get a 10x or a 20x over 10 years or 15 years, that's great too, which allows us to think really long term, which I think is really important for a company like ours, because if we're trying to manage to the quarter and really focus on like near-term profitability and cash flows, that can come at the expense of serving clients, growing and building ambitious things that will be important to our clients in 5 to 10 years.
When I argue, at any stage of a company, whether it's 1 year old or 50 years old, if you're chasing near-term profits over customer satisfaction and an excellent customer journey, you're dooming yourself to long-term failure for sure. So I love hearing you say that. What about the journey for you as the CEO has changed from seed to Series A to Series B, right? And then I want to circle back to this notion of like the right investors for the right type of company with the right time horizon. Don't let me forget to come back to that. But you're a different CEO at every stage for a whole bunch of reasons. I'd love to hear from your perspective what's changed most for you as you've transitioned as a business from early stage to now to growth stage.
Yeah. For me personally, at Seed, I was the salesperson. We had no other salespeople. And that's where a lot of my time went, although like working across product a little bit throughout the time. At Series A, we'd hired a salesperson and we were just about to hire a few others. So we're starting to go from like founder-led sales to, okay, we have other people that have figured out how to also sell this product. And then at Series B, we had a sales team and an approach, and we can start to show if we put $1 into the business at this part of the business, here's how we get $3 out, and start to go from single product that can be bought to a multi-product ecosystem around like what does the investor themselves need, what does their advisor need, what does the accountant need, what do the fund managers need, and then building products that suit each of those and suit different types of firms that would use our platform. So now we're able to also like get scale within the organization itself by hiring great people that can like run new products, run divisions, run a sales team, run a technical team, and build a lot more simultaneously. So it's now we're kind of at the stage of thinking about the bets we have in the ground and the things that we want to do in 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, and 5 years.
So what part of your job that you loved when you had 20 people in the room with you, did you have to stop when you got to a couple hundred? Are there major shifts there for you? And I'd love to hear how you dealt with it. I know for me, it's always, it's a tough thing to give up certain parts of the job that you love the most, but it's the right thing to do to keep driving the business. I'd love to hear like what those have been for you.
Yeah, for sure. Like I love clients and spending time with clients. And now no longer really get to drive like sales processes from end to end. I do think that I am a glorified BDR. And if you know what a BDR is, it means like the folks that generate leads, which are really important. So a lot of my role today is to go get leads for the company or establish relationships for the company, and then hand those off to the sales team that can steward those folks through their journey of how they become an Arch client. But then oftentimes get to like come back in towards the end of that process, come in when someone is a client. So I think that customer connection and obsession is at the core of what we do, and powers everything else, because only by deeply understanding our customers and their needs today and how their needs are evolving can we build the right products and shape the organization to serve their needs over the next decade or two.
I appreciate that approach and that attitude toward sales, and also, knowing when to get out of the way oftentimes is one of the hardest lessons for us to learn as founders and executives, because we are so passionate about it. But yeah, as you either intuited and or learned, maybe the easy end or maybe the hard way, oftentimes the best thing we can do is get out of the way, especially once we've got processes and procedures and teammates that know what they're doing and are good at their job. Like we have to get out of the way and enjoy parachuting in here and there to help out, or just keep up the relationship with the client to keep the ball moving forward, but not get in the way.
100%, because the sellers we have now are significantly better at sales than I am and know significantly more about sales. So now they're closing clients that we sometimes have talked to for 3, 4, 5 years. And part of it is we've matured as an organization to a point where it's like, okay, now is the right time for them to buy Arch. But also another part of it is like, these folks are much better like running through a process, explaining what we do, understanding their organization, can spend a lot of time with each of these prospective clients to bring them into the firm.
Love it. Well, it sounds like you've had an interesting opportunity over the course of the last several years to, as you built the team and built the culture, to, as all founders do, to sort of shape it and form it to a large extent based on your vision for how a team can and should work together to get the best results. Specifically, one thing I read that you had written that I really appreciated is that you have been pretty explicit about building an in-office company.
Yes.
You start our conversation with, here's our new office space. Like we finally have river views and it's beautiful. And that's awesome, especially as a technology company headquartered in New York. To me, that it's great. I have to share my bias. I love in-office, in-person teams. To me, there's nothing better than working with your teammates and going to battle every day. But I'd love to hear why you refer to your in-office culture, particularly now, as a competitive advantage for Arch relative to the rest of the ecosystem in which you compete.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that happens in the metaphorical like water cooler conversations. So the place we invested the most in our office is our kitchen. We do lunch for employees there every day of the week. We have an insane abundance of snack that maybe only Bloomberg, which if you've ever been to Bloomberg, has like this incredible snack selection, our snack selection. So we still have places to aspire towards. And there's like 3 different ways to get water. It's nutty. But there's so many reasons to go to that kitchen and to the pantry that it leads to like a lot of conversations there. And we have 2 floors today. So sometimes I'll go to like the other floor that ends up being like pretty engineering and product oriented. And then without fail, almost every time I'm in the kitchen on one floor or another, there's just like some conversation that sparked of like, oh, I was on this call and heard this thing and you're building a future solution to solve for the pain around capital calls. And you should know this about what this customer said, and they would love to spend time on the phone with you. So there's a lot of things like that. Even coming up in the elevator this morning, we have a new member of the team that joined to focus on like how we serve private equity firms and real estate investors. And then he met like the engineer that's working on that product, and it was just like a great serendipitous moment. And now they're going to get coffee. So we just really believe in like that in-person connectivity and the serendipity around it.
That's great. Are there types of employees that won't necessarily flourish in your environment? Every company has folks who just aren't going to fit from a cultural perspective or whatever. But I'm talking about, particularly nowadays, for the most part, is I'd say 95% of companies. Yeah. Unless you're like a giant global corp, like you're pretty much work from wherever you want, whenever you want. Has that been a challenge for you in attracting some of the top talents you're looking for, or do the folks that are going to be great teammates for Arch just get it? Are they're attracted to that from moment one?
Yeah, I think it helps us significantly more than it hurts us, and it's a really good talent filter. because the folks that want to build and want to be part of being in person and building and serving customers and like being with a team that cares will want to be in this environment. So I think it self-selects in a really good way.
How many folks do you have on the team today exactly? I thought it was 250. Am I right there, or is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's great. It's a nice sized team. So the reason I asked that question to clarify is because it's a big difference. Every 65 people in my mind is a huge difference. And part of that's because we're really good with teams and groups of about 65 people. And then our ability to empathize and relate and be on a first name basis with every one of those people and really understand them totally deeply as human beings starts to fade away, starts to go away because the network is too big. And so every doubling or tripling or quadrupling of the population of the team, the tribe that you achieve, you end up inevitably in a situation where you can't have the same level of depth of conversation, the same level of depth of understanding, the same amount of one-on-one time because there's not enough hours in the day. So I'm curious for you, how do you deal with that? Because the 250th employee, by definition, is not someone you're going to know as well as the fifth employee. Yet you want them to understand the history, the culture, the values that you and the first 20 people share. Does my question make sense? I'd love to hear sort of how you think through that as you grow.
Yeah, well, the great thing for us is we're pretty non-hierarchical as an organization. So you'll have like the most senior leaders of our organization that are on calls with folks that have just started here and on calls with customers and on calls with partners and are just like involved in the doing. We're very much like a doing culture. And so that allows us to like work cross-functionally in a really interesting way and get to know people in a really deep way where it's not just like, okay, you only talk to your team or you only talk to like your level of folk at the organization. But I think there's a lot of things that bring people together around certain clients or initiatives or like our customer advisory board or things like that, where people get to work cross-functionally with folks that they don't sit next to, which helps us keep this like neighborhoody feel at the company.
I like that. So of your 250, you're ideally all of you are in this space together as much as humanly possible. But we're not out seeing clients and helping them to grow. I'm curious, when you're looking at the team itself and how you break down the customer journey and the touch points that different members of the team, whether I'm in engineering, finance, sales, services, support, customer success, whatever it might be, have you guys gone through the process of really thinking through that customer journey and tying everyone's responsibilities to that customer journey and their happiness? Or do you guys take a different approach where you're thinking about product development and engineering and customer and sales and services in sort of like connected silos?
Yeah. It is really like, and to your point around how teams develop, like as we continue to grow, we're able to like specialize and focus on new areas or new verticals, or really think about like the different parts of a customer's journey. So when we were a 5-person organization, it didn't make sense to have a separate onboarding team that made getting started as simple as possible. But now it does. And now we can specialize on what does an onboarding look like for an individual and what does an onboarding look like for a global bank that would bring tens of thousands of investments to Arch across hundreds or thousands of their end clients, and being able to like solve each of those issues with like the right team and the right support in a very personal way. So everyone that interacts with and works with Arch gets matched to someone on our team who's like their guide for getting started using the platform. We also have invested in a support team that is in an era of AI going the opposite direction for support, because no one wants the like automated support, can't get through, doesn't understand my questions thing. So we put you on chat or on the phone with a real human in 9 seconds on average. And so we're able to like really invest in these different areas because they create so much value as a component of the larger Arch offering. And we've had some really thoughtful execs who have kind of helped us plan out different parts of the organization to really serve our clients and their needs in a way that is pretty differentiated for our market.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because, again, looking at your market and the types of customers you serve and the needs of those clients, having built a couple of companies in your category myself, like they're an exacting customer set. They have needs, they have wants, they have desires, and they make those desires, needs, and wants known. And they're used to getting exactly what they need from their other vendors. So, one of the things that I always used to deal with in the category was we're obviously a value-added software platform doing value-added services for our client, but we're not the most expensive service that our clients buy. But there's an expectation that the service level that you get from your best service provider should be almost, if not exactly on par with the service you get from your smallest service provider, right? Because there's these expectations that are there. And so finding a way to sort of thread that needle as a smaller vendor versus a larger vendor or a mid-tier vendor, I've always found was part of the challenge, but also part of the fun opportunity associated with building a business in this category. In other words, as a vendor to a customer that, where you're a smaller fraction of their spend than like the next vendor they might be talking with, how do you outperform that vendor that they're spending more money on? How do you create a higher level of value for yourself and your business and therefore your team by doing that? It sounds like you guys have been thinking in a similar way with regards to providing super high touch, white glove service, human first service in an AI world to your clientele. Do you feel like that's proving to be a competitive advantage for you relative to your competition? I know a lot of competition in your space has definitely tried to remove humans from the loop, which I'm sure has been met with mixed reactions.
Yeah, it's a huge competitive advantage because also on one side of our business, we're the leader in automation in private markets. So we're building like the most automation and the most like AI native solutions for how people can manage their investments. But on the other side, like the places where it really matters, we give you a person. And I think that's where the world is going. Like you want self-service, you want things that are easy, you want things that just work. But you also want like human oversight or just a person to talk to if you have a question. Because like some of our users are 25, some of our users are 95. And for the 95-year-old that like needs to figure out how to use a platform to get their K1s, it's a very different situation than a 25-year-old that's like, I don't need a tutorial. I'm just going to click all the buttons until I figure it out. And that'll be good enough for me. And so it's being able to like meet our customers where they are and provide that level of like white glove training and support and guidance, and also even become like an extension of our clients' teams. Like Arch is often a reason why clients, especially like wealth management firms, win business by being able to talk about like how this can help their clients and why they should go to that firm to and because that firm cares about their clients enough that they bought Arch and use it to solve some of the most painful parts of that client's wealth journey. And then that comes from like talking to those clients, really understanding what they need, and then giving them the training and tools to be able to tell that story effectively.
So what you just said reminds me of some of the things that I know you say a lot, where you talk about the difference between the 84% and the last 16%, right? Yep. The 16%, the last 16% of any process is way more difficult than the first 84%, whether it's, in your case, automating certain workflows, automating certain data collection points, automating certain processes, or even in work and life in general, the last mile is always the hardest. What, as you think about your AI strategy, how did you decide where AI for you should act autonomously versus where the human should be in the loop? And is it mostly around the last mile, the last 16% that humans are mostly involved, or is it anywhere and everywhere along the cycle that you are throwing a human in the loop?
Yeah, and I think what you're referring to is, so we've talked about over the 10-year life of a private equity firm, which oftentimes many of these firms last for much longer than 10 years, it's 5,500 clicks for the end user to manage that fund. So we've automated 84% of those clicks. Of those 84%, it's most of the workflows that we do today are automated, and then it's things that are still on the client side to do, of like completing subscription documents, taking the capital call notices that we've received for them and checked and verified, and then working with JP Morgan to send out those notices, getting a election for a distribution of SpaceX shares and deciding whether it goes to their Morgan Stanley account or their JP Morgan account. But those are places where it's like, this should be an end-to-end automated one-click experience. So that's what we're building towards. So when the fund manager you invested in is distributing SpaceX shares, we should be able to say, hey, last time you did this, we'll do this for you if you want us to, or you can like decide to do something different. So giving people easy options that are fully baked in and defaults and automating the end-to-end work. And there's a lot of that type of work left to do.
The automation story makes complete sense. And automating every part of tedious tasks makes sense. As you and the product team have been building out the platform, how do you decide where AI should act completely autonomously and where a human has to sort of remain in the loop and or accountable to a process for a client.
Yeah. Today, and this is July of 2026, people don't want AI to do things like payments on their behalf, but you might want AI to like queue up the payment for you. But you still want to have total control over, do I pay this capital call? Is this the right capital call? Do I pay it today or do I pay it next week? That may change over time. But today we can do all the like unsexy background setup work for you automatically and then give you control over the things that you still want control over. So it's leading to potentially a great world where people spend less time on these like tedious manual tasks. Like data entry is a massive, massive industry in the US and internationally. And that's something that like AI could potentially be very, very good at. But you need to make sure that you build the right models to make sure that output is good enough, because people don't just want automation. What people want is a job done. So if you can do a job done, do a job and do it automatically, that's great. But at the end of the day, you need to do a job and do it well. And that's what we focus on.
Well, on top of that, I remember Clayton Christensen, one of my favorite professors of all time and great writer, great dude. He always used to say that when you go to the hardware store to buy a drill, you're not buying a drill, you're buying holes. Right. And the same thing holds true for this. Private market information arrives through fragmented portals and PDFs and emails and spreadsheets and investor letters and capital account statements and tax documents, all the stuff that you mentioned. And, when I look at Arch and think about what you do for your clientele, your value proposition rests on converting that entire mess into standardized, usable information. Like you're delivering holes, to use Clayton Christensen's terminology, that is really hard to get anywhere else. And it's hard to get exactly right. So I understand why the desire to automate everything is real. And certainly as someone who deals with this stuff myself, like you want it automated, but you also want that oversight.
Yeah, and depending on the client and the persona, people want different things. Like some folks might want to spend less time on bad, terrible manual work and might want better high quality data, or might want better returns that they think knowing this information can help power, or might just simply want to know how much Anthropic they own so they can talk about it at a cocktail party. And so depending on what your desire is, we have now like a few different types of outcomes and solutions we can deliver.
Yeah, you can give them the information they want in the form they want it. So is Arch fundamentally, a workflow company, a data management company, or like a trust company? Like when you think about your brand, and if I'm talking to any of your customers, what would they describe you as? A workflow manager, a data manager, or a trust manager?
Yeah, I think trust is one of the biggest things. We certainly automate a lot of workflows, and then out of that comes high quality data. And then over time, I think we can be a system of insights. And so we're doing a lot now around not just like making your information make sense and helping you structure quantitative data, but also helping with like, what are managers saying? What data do you have that you should better understand? And what's out there in the world? So if you own a company or you own a fund that owns companies, what should you know about those companies and those funds that we can help you get really good signal on? So that becomes a big part of our story over time. And if we do that, then our clients can be better informed and have an edge as they think about how they invest in private markets.
Okay. I'm going to transition for a second into a segment that Gary and I do every single week called the Boardroom Blitz. We're going to ask you a random question. We have this random question generator, 10 random Boardroom Blitz questions. And I'm going to push a button here on my side, and it's going to pick a question for you, and you have to answer it. You don't have to answer it in, you can answer any way you want. It can be sarcastic, it can be real, but I'm curious about it. Let's see what the first one comes up as. All right. So it says, what's one business book you actually finished and think everyone else should too?
Yeah, this is an easy one, which is Poor Charlie's Almanac, which is the collection of Charlie Munger's speeches that is really well written and well annotated. So as you're going through and reading a speech, and I think it's like 13-ish speeches that he gave throughout his life that are full of worldly wisdom, it'll talk about like how that relates to some of the work at Berkshire Hathaway, what a certain concept was. And it's a beautiful coffee table book too. It's pretty dense, but I bought it for my grandfather, bought it for my dad. A lot of folks have enjoyed reading this book and think you would too.
I can second that. I've got the book on my desk at home too. I refer to it all the time. It's one of the classics, and I totally agree. Everyone should read it. All right, next question. Let's see what it says here. The next boardroom blitz question for you, Ryan, is what's the worst advice an older or younger colleague ever gave you? And did you take it anyway?
Yeah, when we were starting this company, someone said, like, don't do this. We were part of the early team of building another company in our space, and it's really terrible and really hard to sell to family offices and investment advisors. And you should just, like, I hear you're smart. You should save yourself a lot of headache and do something else. Start something else. It'll be easier. And we also had people early on. They were like, this is not a big enough market. It's not like worth doing. You should focus on something different. And glad we ignored it. And I think that's part of entrepreneurship is you have to be like a little bit delusional and listen to some advice, but completely ignore anything that says like the road ahead will be hard, because the road of course is hard, but it's actually not hard if you don't think about it being hard.
Well, the hard part's kind of what makes it fun too. I mean, solving real hard problems, it makes it really, really fun. What's interesting too is, so I get this question all the time from people. It's like, what do venture capital investors want? This kind of like dovetails back into this notion of you raise venture capital money, you've done a seed, a Series A, and a Series B, and like that's real money, and you've raised real money, and you've got real obligations to your investors. And not every business is venture backable for starters, and also not every venture capital firm, not every venture capital investor looks at deals the same way, which is obvious as you say it, but there are generalist funds, there are sector-specific funds, there are people that look at, all kinds of different weird stuff, and people look at very generic stuff. Half the challenge of raising venture capital money as a founder is determining which of the investors in the market are the right investors for your business. Because as VCs, we're looking for four things. Right? We're looking for big markets and big exits and awesome teams and really solid business ideas. But big markets is subjective and big exits is subjective. And not every company is going to be a $1 trillion company, and it doesn't need to be, right? And the $1 trillion companies are not a dime a dozen, right? There's a reason that they are what they are. And they also take decades to build. That's the other thing I think people oftentimes forget. It takes a very, very long time to build a business of significant value. And the journey is what makes it fun. So I love that you've always had a very open and open-minded approach to what you've done. So you were told, oh, don't do this. It's a dumb idea. The market's not big enough. It's too small. You should go to something harder. You said it was from some people that had been working on another company in the category for a while. Sometimes I wonder if that's because, they're afraid that you're going to come in and compete with what they've built. And other times, right, if you spend so much time in a certain industry, in a certain space, you become familiar with that space as it is. And then it's harder to think about what it could be. Is that something that you sort of felt or saw as you were building Arch?
Yeah. I mean, I think like why what we're doing matters is because it's hard and because like it's a real problem that requires real infrastructure. And I think there's a lot of value to that. And that's like also why we need to be successful, is because I think like probably one of our biggest competitors right now I've heard is about to get bought, and that's like great, but like we don't want to get bought. We want to go like build a very impactful company that helps real people manage their investments and make better decisions. And it's very different than like trying to just pursue a financial outcome. Like we're trying to like build a true like enterprise that can do a lot of good in the world. And I think that's like what powers us day in and day out, is the ability to like, if we are successful with this phase of the company, then we can do this thing. And if we do that, then it helps these people, and then it allows us to do this other thing. And so we have a 20-year roadmap of the things that we can build that hopefully we get a chance to do, because I think it will really help our customers as they think about like their financial lives and having more productive work lives, but also more fruitful financial lives.
Well, to that end, going back to customers, which I appreciate you always go back to customers. I remember reading an interview that you did where you talked about your entrepreneurial approach is a little bit like your grandfather's variety store, if I recall correctly. And this notion that if you give customers exactly what they actually want, you're going to have more loyal customers, you're going to have better customers, and you're ultimately going to do well. So, with that in mind, what do you think that your grandfather understands about customers that venture-backed founders routinely forget?
Yeah, absolutely. My great grandfather ran a store in a coal mining town of 600 people. And he was up at 4:30 every morning as folks would go to work, and everything that they needed, they could get through the store: eggs, chickens, denim, nails, hammers. And he probably would like continually think about like the inventory that he was keeping based on like how folks' needs were changing. It's like, oh, interesting. People are like liking this thing called Coca-Cola. We should bring more Coca-Cola into the store. But I think it like taught me a lot of through the stories I've heard from my mom and my grandfather. It's like the value of hard work, the value of caring about customers, and just like the value of doing things day in and day out with consistency can deliver great results.
So when you were growing up, knowing your great-grandfather's background, and sorry, I referred to him as your grandfather. I couldn't remember if it was great or great. So your great-grandfather, knowing his stories, do you feel like his influence as a character in your family's history pushed you toward the job of entrepreneur, the thing of becoming an entrepreneur, or did you sort of discover that you are an entrepreneur through some other method, or just wake up one day and realize, oh man, I should be building companies?
I think it certainly made it an interesting theme. Like when I was asked what I want to do when I grew up, when I was like 7, I think I vacillated between like fireman and run a general store. But it's the OG American entrepreneurship where you figure out like what people need in a certain geo, and in this case, a small town, and then you just like build the store around their needs. And so I think a lot of those stories taught me about like, it's about the real people who are oftentimes working very hard at their job that need something that you can provide, and then kind of figure out like how you can be of service to those folks. Is a lot of ways to create value in this world.
Which is great. A minute ago, you said that, at Arch, you've developed a 20-year roadmap for things you can build, ways you can service, ways you can impact your customer for the next 20 years. And you hope you get the chance to do that with them. What part of running Arch would your great-grandfather immediately understand, despite the fact that you're a technology company, he wouldn't understand, a thing about the tech? What about what you're doing and how you're looking at that 20-year vision for your clients and for the business would he immediately get?
Yeah, I think just the hard work that we put into this and how much we care about the people that work next to us and the people that we're working for. And how that's like what will deliver a great result, and how we're very like long-term oriented. It's not like this isn't a get rich quick scheme. This isn't a way to like try to build something quickly and sell it. It's like, no, we're like building a reputation where people know with consistency, this is what you get when you come and work with us. And in all companies, not everything is perfect in any one given day. But you have an opportunity to like create a reputation over how you treat each day and how you treat each interaction. And so that's a thing that we really focus on.
I love it. Well, Ryan, it's been such a pleasure to watch you build Arch over the last 5 years that I've known you. And I can't wait to see where the business keeps going over the course of the next 5, 10, and 20 as you keep building what will inevitably be the coolest platform in the world for private investments and asset owners. It's very exciting stuff. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, Jeremy, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat more.
I love it. All right, we'll talk soon then, man. Boardroom Blitz is proudly presented by 1871, the world's leading nonprofit community dedicated to helping founders, innovators, and growth stage companies thrive. Hosted by Gary Cooper and Jeremy Bacon. Produced by Alex Bacon. Original theme music by Jimmet. Special thanks to our guests for sharing their hard-earned lessons with us. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who's building something worth leading. Thanks.